Good evening, everyone. We warmly welcome all our attendees this evening for Think Afresh, the only way out in VUCA times, webinar presented by Mr. Deepal Suryarachi. H1 Private Limited being awarded the Microsoft Country Partner in Sri Lanka for the year 2020, in being the platform provider this evening. We hope to make this webinar very interactive, and thereby during the session, you are invited to use the Q&A platform to ask any questions you may have. At the end of the session, these questions will be discussed live. So let me give a brief introduction to our resource person this evening, Mr. Suryarachi, a corporate leader with a proven track record and has over 30 years of experience in sales, marketing, advertising, and general management, from which over 10 years at board level, and has authored over 15 books, pioneered disseminating management concepts in simple language through Sinhala Business Book Series. Also, he is an alumni of PIM, National University of Singapore, Asian Institute of Management, and Stanford Business School, USA. He has conducted over 1,000 training programs, lectures, motivational speeches in 11 countries across 5 continents. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Deepal Suryarachi.
Thank you. Thank you and good evening. It is nice to be with you. Hope you can hear me clear. And I titled this session as Think Afresh during VUCA times. Times where there's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity is present is called VUCA. And if you really look at, now we are living in a time where this is like almost normal, isn't it? Right? Some of your financial year was from 31st March to 1st of April the next year. Then last year you started with Easter attack and came head on to COVID this year. And your year is eaten at both ends, right? And then while we were just coming out of this, and there are political changes and there are economic ramifications, and then we were talking about a near risk of oil spill and things like that. And most of us who are in senior positions today, we probably operated most of our careers under emergency during the 30 years of war. And we had learned to live in a very volatile situation. And so therefore we have that resilience. But most of us, for example, my entire marketing career, except the last few years, all my marketing plans were, say, excluding North and East. You know, it was very, very common to say excluding North and East, as if there was no country there. Now, and as you grow up and when organizations become bigger, you tend to assume a certain amount of stability. You know, we are getting used to this 3-year rolling forecast and things like that. And as a result, it becomes very difficult for us to change also because our organizations have built as if they are built forever. Whereas the premise that on which we operate and the background in which we operate are changing very, very fast. And in this context, some of the smaller players, right, single account owners and people like them, they can manage things far better than us sometimes. I remember during the COVID time, there was this vegetable vendor at the Jatika Pola at Narahempita. He serviced 1,350 customers, not online, but by getting their orders over the phone. Now, he was ready far better than some of our corporates who collect so much of data about customers. So this is a clarion call for us to start asking some tough questions. How can we operate and succeed in this kind of times? So today's discussion is more about how to ask questions, how to think innovatively, and how to get on to some practical things out of that. So facing this kind of adversities is like climbing mountains. You know, we have chosen to be in business, so therefore we cannot escape. Mountain climbing is also like that. You have the option of staying at home, but you decide to climb a mountain. Say, well, when you start climbing mountains, you have no option but to face these adversities. In mountain climbing, there are three types of people that we come across. There are climbers. They are the people who continuously face challenges and continue to go up, and they end up in the summit. Then there is another lot who try a little bit and they become campers. You know, they are the people in organizations who say, hey, we must do it, but then slowly, you know, stay put, and they wait and see how others do, and, you know, they like to stay at the status quo. And of course, there are some quitters who give up and who don't continue to the journey. So this COVID showed you a very interesting profile of some people in organizations. You saw the climbers, you saw the campers, and of course you saw the quitters. So I coined these three phrases for them: naginnan, laginnan, saha helinnan. You might be able to use it in your organization. So in order to win in this kind of uncertain, complex, ambiguous, volatile situation, I like to propose that you must question. To improve any situation, you must question. Now, to question, you must see. If you don't see, you cannot question. Now, to see, you must observe. So there's a difference between seeing and observing. To observe, there must be focus. Stop and watch. Now, to focus, there must be silence. Now, when I say silence, absence of distractions and total focus. This is kind of a mental state in a way, because it is very easy for us to get distracted. So that's why we don't see. Look at a common behavior today. When something happens, say I was at a wedding last week, and a very friend, Bhatia and Santosh, came and performed. So everybody got up, almost everybody got up with their phones, and they started filming, or not, you can call it filming, recording on their mobile phones. So you think that they see the act? I don't think, because they missed the opportunity to see, hear, feel the whole presentation. They were busy capturing, you see. So in that you miss out the real thing that happens. This is the same thing that happens to us when we don't observe the market. And that's why the people who have been selling different things on the roadside, they picked up new things and they started selling face masks very quickly. Long before the company started getting to it, they started stitching it and bringing it and selling, because they were observing what people wanted. So these 5 steps: question, see, observe, focus, and if you are familiar, this is far more powerful when you see like vimasanna, balanna, piriksanna, ekatmikavanna, nihadavanna. Now this is very, very difficult, because only in silence you will begin to see, because in discussion, in talking, You're very busy, you don't see. So this is the state of mind you need to develop if you want to cut through this VUCA time cacophony, the disturbance, right? You must have focus. So let's do a simple exercise. What do you see here? Well, mostly the first response I get when I present this to audiences, they said, "Oh, women carrying water." Now that is right. Or sometimes say, "Oh, I see poverty," that kind of thing. But if you really go and see, what do we see? We see some women walking away from us. They seem to be maybe Indian, Sri Lankan kind of dress, and they are carrying some pots on their head. And there's other group of women, they are coming towards us. And the picture on your left is rural, and this seems to be a little bit of semi-urban because you can see a car behind, and obviously they are not from this part, they are from Africa. So without going and just putting labels onto it, it is poverty, drought, and these things, start describing what you see. This is the basic skill, right? A lot of managers forget to do that. They want to give a big name. And if you had done an MBA or something, you straight away get onto a big word and you miss the point. Now, if I ask you to define what is their problem, what do you think is their problem? You might think, well, they must be having a problem of access to water. Okay, let's see. If it is access to water, the kind of solution that comes to your mind is always to bring water to them, isn't it? So we define the problem as access to water, and that definition of the problem got us to think of a solution of bringing water to them, whether it is a community tap or an Abyssinian well, or even a browser bringing water different times of the day. Go back to the scene again. Ask the question, what is their problem? Other than try to define the circumstances they are in, other than in the standard way. If you were to do this, what will you experience? Isn't carrying a problem? Let's agree. Carrying is the problem. If carrying is the problem, what are the kind of solutions that our mind will start looking for? What are the alternatives to carrying? Can we pull? Can we push? Provide a cart or something? Exactly. Right? Look at this solution. This is called Q drum. Honestly, when I first saw this on National Geographic, I asked myself, why did we think of it? It's such a simple option. You don't even push water, you're pulling water along. So go back to our picture again and ask, okay, it's not access to water, it is not carrying, what is the problem? One of you might say, yeah, because they are poor, they're going through this. If they have money, then they will find somehow without having to carry. Yeah. So if you define their problem as poverty, what are the kind of solutions that come to your mind? Maybe microfinance, jobs, Now, same situation. We defined it in 3 different ways, and the solutions that we came up with 3 different. So I think you got my point. The definition of the problem embeds the answer. So whether it is a problem in the organization, in the country, or at home, it is the definition of the problem that is more important, because in the question lies the answer. So the quality of observation only determines the quality of question. Can you see? If we had just looked at, that's scarcity of water, and that's it. But if you go further, good quality observation gives us opportunities to look at it from different points of view. And our questions obviously are influenced by our own conditioning. Take your organizational setting. The finance will most of the time look at it from a financial perspective. The HR will look at it from their discipline. Marketing will look at it from a different discipline. And manufacturing will look at it from different, because we are conditioned by our past. So what we need in organizations today to cut through this kind of complex and challenging situations is to have newer questions. And in fact, what is low in organizations, what is rare in organizations, is questions. Because unfortunately, our education system also prevents students asking questions. I have gone and lectured almost all the universities in Sri Lanka, in the north, east, south, you name it. And very rarely will somebody get up and ask a question. They are made to listen. And that I don't know whether you listen properly, but you don't ask questions. So you bring them into organizations. In classrooms, we don't allow people to ask questions. So the more we become weaker in asking questions, slower becomes our progress. So the message is asking questions. The second thing that I want to bring to you is, so moving from there, how do you innovate? This is very interesting. I had almost observed these things and developed a different theory until I met this Professor Hal Gregerson when I was on the Winters Commission as a commissioner. They have done a research at INSEAD and found, after examining about 2,000 organizations that are very innovative, they have very clear processes of observing. When you say observing, you go and observe your statistics, data, consumer behavior, market research, constantly observing how people use your product, what are the pain points, things like that. Then questioning, asking the question, and like we did before, define the same thing in different ways. I remember a long time ago, this was a condensed milk company. Their product was excellent and everything was good. Then when they did a market research, some women said, sir, the problem is I need to have the man in the house to use this condensed milk. Yes, why? No, I cannot open it on my own. So that was an observation, and the insight gives the solutions to pull up a can. So questioning, right? So we can use that we learned before to questioning. So you frame different questions to same situation, right? How will this be looked at by the distributor, the consumer, the manufacturer, the regulator, the different people, they will look at it from a different way. And if you fail to ask the right question, your observing can end up there. Then experiment without going and doing the whole thing, do in small bits, try it in one outlet, try it in one area and see what happens. And then networking, start sharing, learning, bringing in technologies and people who are not in your own industry, all right? I remember when I was in insurance, we had this problem of attaching the first schedule of a life insurance policy to the pre-printed booklet. And we used to put some eyelets one by one, and that became the bottleneck while the whole thing is automated. Now, no point talking to other insurance colleagues for this. So what I did was I started talking to garment industry people and asked, how do you attach these eyelets? They said, oh, very simple. We have a machine we put, and so we got a person who made those machines, and he made a machine where it was very easy to attach the paper with an eyelet. Associational thinking is a very interesting concept. Is you associate things that are not normally associated before. Just think about what you have. All of you have a mobile phone. And today when you talk of mobile phones, we talk more about its photographic and filming kind of capability more than communication. Those of you who had real cameras, 30, 25 years ago, if you had a camera, you wouldn't carry your camera wherever you go unless you are a news reporter, isn't it? And there are many opportunities you said, I wish I had the camera. So maybe somebody observed, right? There's a need for you to carry the camera wherever you go. So you ask the question, okay, what is it that you carry all the time other than the camera? Now they have a mobile phone, you tend to carry the mobile phone all over the place. So can we fix the mobile phone and camera together? Originally, it was honestly like a phone and a digital camera, put together with a rubber band. That's the kind of solution. And today, so it is embedded. Can you see? So this is associational thinking. These are 5, I would say, disciplines we can institutionalize and we can adopt as individuals also. Now, this is a fantastic case study, right? This is how Godrej, when they had problems in selling fridges in India, they used innovative techniques to come up with a new product called To Cool. Perhaps you have seen this already, but let's watch this video to watch the case study. So please watch this case study with these 5 points in your mind: questioning, observing, experimenting, networking, and associational thinking.
Only 8% of rural India had access to refrigerators. This statistic led to the innovation of To Cool, Godrej's mini refrigerator that runs on electricity as well as battery. To Cool is the poster boy for disruptive innovation in India. Like email disrupted the existing market for postal mail, To Cool has revolutionized food preservation for low-income households.
India, a country where 1/3 of the total food produced in India is spoiled. An urgent need to nip this alarming number was identified in 2006. And as they say, where there is a need, there is an innovation. In a country where 80% of the people have no access to simple refrigeration, a concept so ordinary in today's urban homes, Godrej introduced To Cool. A low-cost, low-energy refrigerator to provide the comfort of cooling to the sun-scorched households of rural India.
We started understanding non-consumers, basically people who are non-users of refrigerator, and started understanding their life, their living pattern, in their habitat, in their surroundings and all that. And it came out that there were 2-3 things which we looked at. One is what are the barriers to the consumption, why they are not buying a normal existing range of refrigerator which are available in the marketplace. Second, we try to understand their needs, what are the needs they have. And third is, do they really have an aspiration to buy a cooling solution which serves their purpose? The running cost was another issue.
The idea was born at a Harvard University workshop conducted by Professor Clayton Christensen, a pioneer of disruptive innovation. An innovation which creates a new market and eventually disrupts the existing market for a product. A small but significant change in design was introduced by abandoning the compressor technology used in domestic fridges and using a thermoelectric or solid-state cooling system.
We decided to go for a solid state, primarily because that was the simplest thing. A 40 mm by 40 mm by 3 mm chip actually does the cooling as against a 12 kg of a mass which is called compressor.
Innovated to save a struggling refrigerator industry, in 2008, To Cool was born. A 45-litre fridge that can cool food to around 8 to 10 degrees Celsius on a 12-volt battery at the cost of just 3,700 rupees. That's half the price of the cheapest refrigerator you'd find in the market.
A country like India, to be frugal is absolutely essential. because we don't have too many resources, and we really don't have enough resources for the large population that we have. There's no way that you can eradicate the population, nor can we multiply the resources in a short period of time. We have to be resource efficient and we have to be resource effective. So it is important to be frugal. It is important to be cost effective.
With affordability and accessibility at the heart of Chotu Cool, Godrej is the only white good manufacturer in India to address the need of the rural poor by creating a new product category for this invisible consumer segment. But targeting this new segment of consumers meant rejecting standard models of distribution to ensure that one who needs a Chotu Cool gets a Chotu Cool.
A lot of people talk in terms of reaching out to the market and logistics and everything, which pertains to the visible part of the market where roads exist, the highways exist, the warehouses exist, the people who reach out there exist. We really had to look at places which people cannot reach. And that's where this logic of post office came, that India Post reaches out to so many places. How do they do it? They didn't have the courier system. They didn't have the rocket scientists to do that. They have been reaching it out for more than 100 years.
This tie-up with India Post is making sure Chotu Cool is reaching the remotest corners of India and impacting the lives of thousands of households.
One of the stories which really makes me feel that yes, it has impacted the small pawn shop in Nasik. Whenever it's just outside a big hotel, he's selling cold pan out of that, cold meetha pan. He prepares in the morning time and keep it inside it so that during the day it gets cool. Earlier he was using a brick of ice to make that, and now he earns over 2 rupees per pan, and it impacts his life in a big way. And he says that very proudly that after buying Chotu Cool, now instead of one Chotu Cool, he has another Chotu Cool. He has 2 Chotu Cools. So the total outflow of pan per day from him has gone up 3 to 4 times more than what he was selling before buying Chotu Cool.
Chotu Cool has taken a leap forward with its new model that bridges the gap between affordability and aspiration. A revamped model was launched earlier this year for a consumer interested in a lifestyle product rather than a functional appliance.
But over the period of time, we started realizing the aspirations are growing very fast for them also. And during that thing, they started looking at the high-end customers. When we gone through this journey, we find that the aspiration is some way can we make the solution, functional solution, more aspirational. And that last 3 years of journey is all about that.
In a segment with wafer-thin margins and where the cheapest selling is not the largest selling, Godrej hasn't had it easy. But going strong, this revolutionary product is a clarion call to the culture of innovation that can bring about social impact.
Isn't it interesting? So for your benefit, let me summarize the key points under these 5 things. Observations. Only 8% of the rural India has access to electricity. 1/3 of the food is getting wasted. 80% has no access to refrigeration. And the reasons for not buying, they looked at what are the needs and aspiration of people, and of course things like running cost, right? Then they ask questioning, what do they need? A cheaper fridge or a solution to keep their vegetables for a few days? You see, so if you thought let's make a cheaper fridge, their mind will work only in the paradigm of the fridge. But they said no, let's make a solution to keep their vegetable for a few days. Right? So then you're not looking at this -4 degrees centigrade kind of thing. How can we make this product affordable, accessible? How can you make it? Then experimented in the technology, functionality, design, and distribution. In all these things, they did experiments. Networking. They networked with Harvard University and India Post, right? And associational thinking, computer technology, rechargeable battery. We don't associate them with the fridge. A chip instead of a compressor, using India Post to deliver a commercial product, isn't it? So this is a very good case study for us to illustrate. Now let me give a few examples. Now, in Sri Lanka, perhaps, whenever you want to distribute something, this is what you see, people, flock and they fight and all that. So if you define this as a discipline problem, well, you want to put a line and put some security and all that. But if you think, no, no, that is not the problem. Problem is, it's one to many. But if you can give it one to one, then no problem. So then you can bring in some technology or some process improvement to get into that. So you have this mechanical queuing system, or please wait here kind of visual thing at the airport, or using ICT. Today you book your doctors on e-channel, same thing. Another question. You remember there's a massive outcry in Sri Lanka that flour is not good, so you need to get people to eat halpiti, rice flour and things like that. Then they started making kurakang and all these breads. But we didn't ask the simple question. Why do people eat things like malpang? Right? So if you ask the question, why people eat malpang, right? Because it is cheap, it is easy to eat on the go, you don't have to wash your hands, and it is tasty, and it is economical. So if you define, maybe what we need to put out is rice-based, an item that is economical, and that can be eaten on the go without having to wash your hands, right? Now, Japanese have done this. They have a triangular rice product called onigiri, which is like a mulkiribat of us. Can you see? So the moment you define the problem differently, you get different solutions. And I had the opportunity of interacting with this great gentleman once, Dr. Ravi Jayawardena, who invented the two-wheel tractor. He was telling at one forum, it occurred to him, what did I do? Did I mechanize the buffalo or did I automate the agriculture? He says, well, actually what I did was I automated the agriculture. You have the buffalo, you have the plow, you have the farmer. You have the tractor, you have the plow, you have the farmer. So what you replaced was the buffalo with the tractor. Now, in fact, I used this metaphor in one of our major IT projects. I said, don't mechanize the buffalo, but try to automate. Again, same concept. This is very interesting. Those of you who are familiar with rubber tapping, who have seen how rubber tapping is, every morning, early morning, people have to go around every tree and they have to do this removal of this upper layer of the bark so that you really hurt the bark, and then the sap comes and you collect it into this coconut shell, and then you come again after about a couple of hours to collect everything and then bring it to the factory. So this is the kind of tool they use it. When I was at Inventors Commission, every year, invariably, there was one or two improved rubber tapping knives. They work on something here and make it faster, things like that. But then I said, you're solving the wrong problem. Problem is not how efficient you are doing this. I think problem is having to do this to begin with. Who you think would like to go and do this job? So I said, can't you come up with a solution where you don't have to go from tree to tree, but collect all the sap through some pipeline or something? They said it's not possible. This year, somewhere in January, I read this article. In China, they have experimented exactly what I said. They have a little robotic gadget on every tree, and it does the tapping, and the sap gets collected through this little funnel, and it all goes to the final collection point, and there's a pump which sucks everything. So maybe our terrain may not support and all that, but what I'm trying to say is if you define the problem right, you will come up with a different solution. Same with tea plucking. So we are saying it has to be done only by women because only they can figure out these 3 leaves and all that. And because it is difficult to find labor, now we are coming up with various gadgets of how to pluck tea mechanically. But again, the question is, why would you want a human being to go and do this task? So if you can use drones, I'm putting It's not today, probably tomorrow it might be possible, right? And then you will have technologies, you will have a handheld gadget and the drones will go and pluck teeth, because if you define how to pluck them. I'm just making it very, very stretch the imagination to such a degree, but if you can imagine something, it's possible. So I have a theory. If any task is repetitive and logical, however complex the logic is, such tasks should be and will be done by machines. So you go back to your organization and see whether there are things that are repetitive and whether there are tasks that are logical. Logical means, you can frame, okay, when this happens. Only in these conditions, only this should happen. And sometimes this logic can be complex, but those tasks should be and will be done by machines one day or the other. Just watch this and see what I'm talking about. Now, cooking can be mechanized, right? Now, cooking in a hotel is easy, but cooking in a home is difficult because it is so complex, so unique, right? Let's look at this.
This is the Molly Robotic Kitchen.
So if you had this kind of technology, then by the time you finish the webinar, your dinner would have been ready, right? So I want to emphasize this, right? If something is repetitive and if it is logical, however complex, it will be and it must be done by a machine. And then when we talk of these things, where do you go and observe? There's a very interesting proposition that is, you can look at it from two sides. One is outside in, the other one is inside out. Right? Outside in, you look at what is happening in the external environment, the market, and see whether we can modify what we are doing from that side. For example, if you look at financing, right, you can relook at what you are doing by networking with restructuring the value chain, right? So where are you adding value? Should you add value, or you should get somebody else to do that? That kind of approach, right? So then you can partner with new organizations. So you begin to focus more on what you really have to do. Then you can even look at the business model itself, because there are new business models emerging, right? How the enterprise is making money. It's very important. How do you make money? So once you understand what is the logic of our business, for example, if you run a restaurant, so what you do is you buy vegetables and other material, and through a process called cooking or preparation, you add value to it, right? So then, and then you sell. So do you sell it from inside visitors or do it out? And then you move into delivery options, right? So customer experience, how can you create an integrated experience for customers? Can my customer experience be different, right? Constantly asking the question, can I make it more personal, more dramatic, things like that. And for example, right now, people are becoming conscious about the immunity of your body and then your food, right? And then cleanliness, these things becomes priority. So can I change some things to make sure that people get the feeling that this is cleaner, safer, and healthier? Then the brand itself, how do you express your offerings, benefits, and values to customers? Now, you saw some companies during the crisis of COVID, they used their brand itself to get connected with customers, of things that matter to them, like for example, recognizing the people who made this country safe. So the brand did that. So then you build a new association. That's a kind of outside-in innovation. Then, of course, channels. How you connect your offerings to your customers. Is it the traditional channel? Are there new channels? So you're constantly asking these questions. Then from inside, when you're looking outside, first look at the processes. Processes is very, very important once in 2-3 years to relook at the entire process of your organization. Because what happens is, over the years, either unless you're very, very disciplined organization, right? People bypass the set operating procedures, or they adopt processes which are not safe, which are not cost effective, but for various reasons it is changed. You know the story of this priest, every morning when he was trying to make this puja, right, this cat would come and disturb. So what he did was he started first tie the cat, then ring the bell and does the puja. So after some time, this man is old, he died, and his son took over. Process continued. Tie the cat, ring the bell, hit the puja. The cat died. So the son said, sorry, you can't do the puja because there's no cat. You see, because he had forgotten why his father used to tie the cat. So go on look at your processes and see whether there are opportunities and fat and cost and inefficiencies in the processes. Right? So go and look at your entire processes and see whether these processes can be improved. Right? and what are the proprietary processes and what are the things that can add value. So constantly go and question and get some experts to ask some questions. Why are we doing that? I remember once when I was in Aviva Insurance, when we were trying to buy a life insurance system, we had agreed a certain the definition of the system, what we want and the processes. And I got down somebody from Australia who kept on questioning most of the things that we have written as user specifications. They asked, why do you want to do that? It made us think. Some things we say, oh, well, that is uniquely Sri Lankan. But sometimes you begin to ask, do you really need to have that? Can there be a workaround? That kind of thing. Then you can look at the offering, right? Now, this is where a lot of companies find it very important to go and look at the product performance. Look for pain points. Look for pain points for your product. Look for pain points in your competitors' products. This is the places for innovation. And what are the systems that are around your product, right? How is it extended? How do they offer them? What are the things that they are doing around the product? The packaging, distribution, and all these things, and the services you offer. So in all these areas, there is opportunity to innovate. Now, when we think of innovation, people think only of product innovation. No. Product innovation is only one. Process innovations, offering innovations, delivery innovations. In every aspect of your organization, there is opportunity to do something new. Now, to do that, you need to go back to that first thing that I said, observe, question. All right. So, in this, I would like to share another concept. This might inspire you to look at it. This is something that changed my life in a way. And once I was in a program in overseas, and there was a Chinese person in my group, and we were discussing something about problems and crises, that kind of thing. And then he said, well, in Chinese, the word we use to refer to a crisis or a problem is called wei qi. And to write the word wei qi, we need two characters. One is, and these Chinese characters, they themselves have different meanings, right? So the first character taken on its own means it is crisis, danger, that kind of feeling. The second character, when you look at it, it means opportunity. So can you look at the way that they're looking at it? So the moment they see something like a crisis or a problem, they see an opportunity. You see? So if you change the mindset to see an opportunity in a crisis, it can be a lesson to learn. Now, recently I was mentoring a manager of a factory in India. And he was telling, I asked him, what did you learn during this crisis? Well, usually our production shifts always had an executive, and we never ran machines without an executive. But because of this COVID, suddenly that particular executive who is designed for that particular shift fails to turn up because that area is cordoned off due to somebody having corona. So then we had no option but to allow the supervisors to run the shift. And then we realized some of these supervisors were good enough to manage that entire process, sometimes even better than the executive. So he said, now we are in an expansion mode. In my expanding the factory, I will not have this executive layer, but I will empower my supervisors and create a thinner organization to expand. So they managed to take out. Then secondly, working with this guy, I learned so much. And he said, we had to manage the organization with 50% capacity. So when we want to do that with 50% capacity, there are so many practices that we have to fine tune, and some of them are best practices. So we use this crisis to institutionalize some of these best practices in the organization. Another senior executive that I am mentoring, he was telling, suddenly there was a major crisis. He had just taken over, but there was a major crisis which involves legal and court cases and things like that. So he had to be away from the factory physically several times a week. So he had nothing, he had no option but to let his number twos to take over the operation. And then he saw the opportunity, okay, I can now develop them to take over most of the things that I used to do on a day-to-day basis to take over. So now I can now focus more on development, expansion, and things like that. So every crisis, like for example, all of us in our organizations saw a lot of opportunities to fine-tune things in this crisis. So those who learned that and converted it into a best practice, I think they are the ones who will win, because this kind of situations will continue to happen. So I would like to ask, what are the changes you see that can have an impact on your business? Start looking around. Right? What are the changes you see that can have an impact on your business? And define them, writing different questions, and use those questions to generate new ideas to explore. Okay, so you take a situation and write different questions. Then it will generate new ideas. So then you think, okay, what is the most plausible to operationalize, right? So this is kind of take-home work. So what we tried to do was, my main message is, this kind of VUCA times is going to be the new norm. Changes constantly will happen. Situation will continue to be volatile. It will continue to be uncertain, and it will be complex with so many factors to be looked at. And you as leaders will have to live with ambiguity all the time, period, right? So in that, the only thing that you can use is this ability to have this mind which observes and questions, because in the question lies the answer. So the quality of question improves the quality of solutions. And in doing that, if you can bring these 5 practices: observing, questioning, experimenting, networking, and associational thinking, right, you will always have opportunities to innovate in your organization. Then when you talk of innovations, don't only look at product innovation, look at process innovations and things that are like business model, the finance models, the offering, the brand. You know, look at everything in your organization and ask, how can we improve? How can we do different things? So make it an organizational wide practice. So that's all what I wanted to share with you, and I will take questions in a few minutes. And going forward, if you would like me to help your organization to get a customized intervention, aligning them to strategy or facilitation to develop strategic responses, and I especially offer this leadership code-based leadership academy from RBL USA, of course, executive coaching and mentoring for senior managers. So these are the kind of things that I do now, and you can get in touch with me using my email address, deepalsmiles@gmail.com. And I hope this almost an hour that we spent together was useful to you, and make this today the first day of the rest of your life. Have a good evening, and let me see whether there are questions that have come to take on. I got one question here. Innovators DNA is an interesting concept. What can we do to improve the innovators DNA at personal level and also at an organizational level? Thank you for that question. Yes, it's a very interesting concept. And if you want to improve observation, like for example, once a week or once in 2 weeks, take a small notebook, right, or your mobile phone or whatever, and walk around the company, walk around the organization, whether it's a factory or the office, and look at things as if you are looking at it for the first time, as if you are coming to this organization for the first time. What do you see, right? And ask some questions. Then get some data in your business and get some people to analyze in different ways and see whether there are relationships. And one of the very interesting things that I always recall is because I've been in insurance for some time. I remember once in Canada, Aviva Canada looked at the driving habits or the propensity to have accidents and the financial discipline of people. And they found that if you have a good credit rating, it means if you had been paying your credit card bills in time, you generally have a better record on accidents. So what they did was they offered a below market rates for those people who have good credit ratings if they came to them for motor insurance. So as a result, they got very good customers at for the insurance company. And for the credit card company, this was a good value addition to their good customers. So, and you need to have some processes, have some disciplined ways to do that. And then in your organization also, you can have little projects which are like cross-functional teams doing little projects to experiment something, right? So that you don't, you try it in one branch, you try it in several branches, and then you put it to the whole organization. That's the kind of things that you can do. There's another question. Your core emphasis in this webinar was the importance of questioning, but why is it so difficult to ask questions? Yes, it is difficult to ask questions for a number of reasons. One is, we are not stopping to observe, because if you don't observe, we don't have questions, right? But look at a little child. From the time he gets out, he wants, Tata, what is this? What is this? What is this? What is this? Why is that? So because the child is observing. Now we have grown up and we have forgotten to observe, so we don't observe. If you don't observe, no questions will come. So for me, the fundamental discipline is observation. And I think I answered your question. Vasanti Dias has said, for innovation to develop, we should start from school, in my opinion. Yes, it is very true. And in many countries where they have better education systems, they in fact create innovation as elements of innovation into their curricula. So don't wait till the school system does that. If you have children, right? Try to get them to observe things, do experiments, and expand their horizon of things that they see and things like that. While working at the Inventors Commission, what I noticed was it is your exposure that defines your solution. Now, if you remember the kind of solutions people came up with during the COVID were very much limited by the technological exposure they had. So those who are with more technological exposure will know finer things. So it's very important fundamentals of science and things for children. But in organization, uh, creating a culture of questioning is also very important. Is your organization a place where people can question what's happening? And do you allow people to question, allow people to challenge the processes, the decisions, the things that we do? In such organizations, people are bold enough to come and do that, right? You mentioned that to have better questions, there must be silence. Can you elaborate on it? Yes. Now, silence is not only the absence of distractions, but absence of interference. We interfere with our knowledge, right? The moment we see women carrying water, we have seen this happening in places with dry weather, and we immediately get into the conclusion maybe they don't have water because of a drought or condition. Or we have seen people carrying water in this kind of pots. So you say maybe they are carrying water. So what if they were carrying something completely different, right? So so this is why it's important to do that. And at a deeper level, having a little silence in your own, right? Having that me time in your office, in your home, will give you that ability to reflect upon, look at things, and ask different questions. So when you start asking these different questions, it will happen only then. In Japan, they call it Kaizen. Yes, small improvements. Yeah, very good. Okay, you have already got your form to give feedback. I appreciate if you spend some time to do that. Given the time as VUCA, and since this is the new normal, will businesses ever be able to recover? How long is comeback will it take in general to all industries? Well, if I can guess that in that precision, I would be making a lot of money. But as you very rightly say, that the changes, the speed of change and the impact it will have is going to be very fast. And as you have rightly identified, we in business, in organizations, will have to learn to be very agile and see how quickly we can read the trends and the markets, whatever the industry you are in. Now there's another interesting question from Abu Dhabi, and he says, from the experience in the global platforms, where Sri Lanka has abundance of talent, but our day-to-day thinking patterns are not proper to think, question from small days, probably from school days, home culture and office environment. Should we start formulating strategy to include such behavior in school curriculum from small days, which might be a paradigm shift and benefit the future of our whole country, since changing adults look a Herculean task? Yes, in fact, there is this initiative called, invention clubs in schools, and if people encourage their children to get involved in these, it's very good, because I worked as a commissioner for 3 years and I know how much the students benefit by doing that, because you can't change the whole curriculum, right? And get your children to ask questions. I think that is the thing that you can do, right? Never shut them up. How do you know whether we have asked the right question? Brilliant. How do you know? We don't know, because you find the answer to this question, right? We cannot go back in time and do that. So that's why when you ask from different questions, then we can validate, okay, what is the real root cause? So that's why this Japanese root cause analysis and things like that comes. So if you go back to that water situation, right? Now, if it is only a smaller population, we can probably uproot the whole population to a place where there is water. Or if you think it is poverty, you can do that. But what happens is when you start multiple questions, it opens up different dimensions of this. So that's the important thing. Doesn't the leadership in organizations play a critical role in innovating? Absolutely, right? And the people in that, it's very interesting, right? What leaders in many times do is block innovation, right? And innovations happen a lot of the time at the periphery, you know. Sometimes you find that people in the field, people in the very far away from the office are doing innovations. I remember a long time ago, it's about 20 years ago, we were selling life insurance policies in Polonnaru, a manager, actually one of the agents. He had been trying to sell these policies to these business people. You know, the Mudalalis. They say, Yo Mahatya, we can't be paying monthly, but then he asks, okay, right, you can't pay 2,000 rupees a month, but can you put 50 rupees or 100 rupees to a till every day for your benefit? Right? So this is the guy who says he doesn't have money to put a policy once a month in 3,000. So then he made a till out of a box and put a key to it and gave it to him and say, Mudalali, every day you put 1,000 rupees or whatever you can to this at the end of the day. Now that was an innovation that happened at the periphery. So what we did was we picked it up and we ordered some metal tills and gave it to everybody who wanted to use this thing. So that is an innovation that happened at the periphery and brought it up. Because if you think the leader has all the ideas, well, then you are in for trouble, right? So because then you think it is hierarchical. No, it is not hierarchical. So it's very important to create that culture where people will come up with new ideas, challenge things, and you put them into committees, cross-functional teams, and that's what leaders need to do. You said that any task, if repetitive, will be and should be done by machines. Are you proposing that most of the current jobs should become irrelevant? I'm not saying they should become irrelevant. They will be, whether we like it or not. So if you have an organization, if you are doing a job which is repetitive, and if it is logical, keep looking at with new technologies that are developing and with big data and artificial intelligence and things like that, and Internet of Things, all these things come together, a lot of our decisions can be taken over by machines. So then you will be left free to do things that human beings should be doing. It's like showing love to the other people, doing some innovative things, you know, being creative, being human. That's probably is a good place to stop if there are no more questions. Looks like, one more. Some of my friends could not attend due to work. Can you email this presentation, please? This Kapila. It's a very heavy file, but let me find out a way to share the presentation. Thanks for asking. I might probably publish these on YouTube. I think it has come to a point that there are no more questions. My team at H1, shall we close this session then? Okay, Manusha. So once again, thank you for spending your evening with me, and I hope we could add some value. And thank you very much to the fantastic team at H1 and who facilitated the use of Microsoft Teams, and it was a fantastic platform to work. Thank you very much, and once again, a good evening to everyone.